Notorious C.O.P. The Inside Story of the Tupac, Biggie, and Jam Master Jay investigations from NYPD's first hip-hop cop. By Derrick Parker with Matt Deal. Narrated by Richard Allen. Copyright 2006 by Derrick Parker and Matt Deal. This audiobook is published by arrangement with Derrick Parker and Matt Deal and was produced in the year 2006 by Tantor Media Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. Chapter 1. The Unsolved Mysteries of Hip-Hop Tragedy. It's like that, and that's the way it is. The allure of breaking the law is always too much for me to ever ignore. Jay-Z. Allure. You're nobody till somebody kills you. Notorious B.I.G. UF-61. Date of occurrence, 10/30/02. Classification, homicide. Approximate time of occurrence, 1930 hours. Referred to Detective Squad. It was around 1:00 a.m. when my cell phone rang. On the other end of the line was A.J. Calloway, then the host of the Black Entertainment Television Network's hit show 106 & Park, the TRL of the hip-hop generation. I could tell from his trembling voice A.J. had bad news. Male, black. Age, 37. Date of birth, 1/21/65. Wearing black jeans, black leather jacket, white shell-toe Adidas. Did you hear what happened? A.J. said. On TPO, victim was found face down, apparently suffered from a gunshot wound. DOA. It had to be something more than just gossip. A.J. always kept his cool, but tonight he sounded a little shook. Okay, real shook. No, what's up, I replied. Victim identified as Jason Mizell, Jam Master Jay. 103rd PDS notified. Jam Master Jay got shot, he said. All I could say was, holy shit. We knew what was about to happen. We'd been down this road before. Tersely, we said our goodbyes. A.J. had other people to call. So did I. Witnesses uncooperative. No suspects, leads at this time. They say everything comes in threes. It happened in Las Vegas. It happened in Los Angeles. And now it had happened here, in New York. My own backyard. Less than a mile, in fact, from where I grew up. It was a familiar story. A hip-hop superstar had been killed in full view of witnesses, and the murder would never be solved. At least, not by conventional law enforcement. I started feeling sick to my stomach. I knew my phone was going to start ringing off the hook. The streets were going to start talking and talking loud. The clubs, corners, barbershops, boulevards, avenues, and back alleys where I used to hunt the truth were abuzz, and I couldn't turn my ears off from the murmurs of the street. The news that Jam Master Jay had been killed awoke the homicide detective that had been laying dormant inside me. I couldn't say it out loud yet, but I knew it already in my heart. Badge or no badge, I was going to solve the Jam Master Jay murder and continue my mission to stop the cycle of violence and distrust that had claimed the lives of our greatest hip-hop icons. Boom. The hip-hop cop was back. Got it. I started calling all my old street informants, trying to find out whatever I could. Reaching out to my contacts in Queens Homicide Division, where I'd worked so many years ago, I finally got in touch with Bernie Porter, a detective from the 103rd Precinct in South Jamaica. Porter confirmed the story going around. Jam Master Jay had been killed in his Jamaica Queens-based recording studio. But, he added, NYPD didn't have much to go on, and furthermore, witnesses weren't cooperating. Surprise, surprise, I thought to myself. I told Bernie if he needed my help to give me a call. He never did, but I could already feel myself getting pulled in. While Jam Master Jay's murder would have been any homicide detective's nightmare, for me, as the New York Police Department's original hip-hop cop, as I became known first to my law enforcement colleagues and eventually by the media, it was worse than a nightmare. Hip-hop is in a state of crisis, yet nobody on either side is making the right moves to squash it. Due to its tragic legacy of violence, hip-hop supremacy could end at any time. Just let one well-placed AK-47 spray at an award show and it's all over. And considering what's gone down at these award shows, it's a pretty fucking likely scenario. So when I got the call about Jam Master Jay's abrupt death that fateful night in 2002, it felt particularly bittersweet. His murder seemed so symbolic to me. If a tree is already dying, how can it survive when you remove the roots? In fact, I was no longer a homicide detective when I first heard the tragic news that hip-hop legend Jam Master Jay, the innovative DJ for rap's first worldwide superstars Run DMC, had been shot and killed in his recording studio on October 30th, 2002. I had actually retired from the New York Police Department, NYPD, 9 months prior, but I was having trouble suppressing my investigative instincts. After spending 20 years on the force, they kicked in like a reflex. I started as a 20-year-old beat cop walking seedy Times Square streets during Ed Koch's infamous mayoralty, before moving on to the Bronx for undercover narcotics, ending up straight out of Brooklyn as a first-grade homicide detective with a gold shield under Rudy Giuliani's iron-fisted administration. Working homicide, I had investigated well over 300 murder cases. On the job, I saw more dead people than that little kid in The Sixth Sense. I've seen bodies chopped up in sections and then neatly disposed of in little plastic bags. I found one victim's bones tossed on the Van Wyck Expressway. In another case, I saw a man's face blown clear off by a shotgun, his eyeballs blown out their sockets, leaving a hole in his head like a window. Through that window, I could see the dude's brain membrane. Yep, just another day on the job. Talk to any big city detective and you'll probably hear similar stories. But that's not why you're listening to this. Ultimately, what I became most known for inside the NYPD and in the media was my status as the first hip-hop cop. The NYPD would have liked to keep my existence as the hip-hop cop secret. If it wasn't for a particular newspaper article, I probably wouldn't even be saying these words today. That article was the shot heard round the world, reprinted as far as Australia and bounced all over the internet. On March 9th, 2004, the Miami Herald published a story by Evelyn McDonald and Nicole White headlining police secretly watching hip-hop artists. In it, McDonald and White revealed that Miami law enforcement were secretly watching and keeping dossiers on hip-hop celebrities, even photographing rappers as they arrived at Miami International Airport. According to Evelyn McDonald, she became aware of Miami law enforcement's covert hip-hop surveillance through a not-so-covert human screw-up. After that, McDonald, the Miami Herald's chief music reviewer, wrote an article profiling local Miami rapper Jackie O. She then received an email from a Miami Beach-based police detective named Rosa Ridgerulio, asking her for information. I collect intelligence on all current rappers and record companies in the South Beach area, Ridgerulio explained in the note. McDonald was taken aback. It was pretty shocking, she explains in hindsight. When I realized it was from a police officer, I knew this was a big deal. I emailed the woman back and said, "Sorry, I can't divulge my sources, but I'd love to hear more about what you do." That's right. Miami law enforcement's clandestine hip-hop surveillance wasn't discovered via an intense investigative expose, no. A detective made it easy and sent a fucking email. The first rule of law enforcement is the same as the code of the streets. Keep your mouth shut, especially when talking to a journalist. Covert activity in any police department is kept undercover for 2 reasons. 1, so those under surveillance don't realize they're being watched. 2, exposure of such surveillance usually results in a public relations disaster. As such, McDonald and White's article exploded Miami's tensions like a volcano. Racial profiling was already a hot-button topic for law enforcement across the nation. To many, the revelation that major urban police departments were targeting rappers and the hip-hop industry was further evidence of this practice. But racial profiling was an especially huge issue in Miami, according to McDonald's collaborator Nicole White. Black lawmakers were concerned by the profiling element, White explains today. A lot of money was at stake, and that was the main concern. The fallout from the Miami Herald piece was immediate. In particular, local tourism was threatened. and Miami was already walking on thin ice where race issues were concerned. After the city had refused to officially welcome South African activist leader Nelson Mandela in 1990, Miami suffered a debilitating 3-year tourism boycott by African Americans. In later years, racial tensions exploded over incidents that occurred when hundreds of thousands of black revelers descended upon Miami for Memorial Day celebrations. Since then, however, Miami has become a tourism mecca for hip-hop artists and their fans, with South Beach's glitzy upscale clubs, hotels, and recording studios all catering to the blinged-out Rat Pack. Rappers were spending big money in Miami and showing off the city's high life in music videos, and as a result, its luster as a glamorous A-list vacation spot has been restored. But now, that was threatened. Following McDonald's and White's article, the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, and other civil rights groups immediately threatened major lawsuits, and music industry insiders were pissed. Russell Simmons was very upset, McDonald says. Damon Dash went on record. He was very upset that incidents from his past were still haunting him. Luther Campbell was very upset. Fat Joe found it all depressing because he thought in Miami he was getting away from that kind of surveillance. The hip-hop community in general was like, we knew it was going on. Quickly, I found myself in the eye of this hip-hop hurricane. Eventually, it came out that members of Miami PD had attended training sessions in hip-hop crime from NYPD detectives. I directed those training sessions, but what caused even greater controversy was the admission that Miami had in its possession a dossier known as the Binder, which I also had created in my tenure in the NYPD's hip-hop squad. We knew there was a guy in New York who had retired who was responsible for the Binder, McDonald explains. But the police wouldn't give us Derrick's name. It didn't take them long to put 2 and 2 together, though, as all the evidence that was never meant to get into the public's hands led directly to me. As the NYPD's rap expert, I was commissioned in 2001 to create the Binder, a printable database detailing the associations and background of every rapper with a known criminal arrest. It would grow to be numbingly complete, numbering over 1,000 pages. The Binder covered everyone from bold-faced hip-hop stars like Puff Daddy, 50 Cent, and Jay-Z, to obscure wannabes like E. Moneybags. It listed every case each rapper ever caught, every felon they ran with, every beef they had with rival rap crews, along with personal information like photos, social security numbers, record company affiliations, and last known addresses. Not surprisingly, the Binder caused a great outcry when it was leaked, and I ended up taking the hits. The resulting episode reminded me of that scene in Scarface where Al Pacino's Tony Montana character states, "You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. So what that make you? Good? You're not good. You just know how to hide." After the Binder surfaced, I was that bad guy. Everyone else was hiding. Like the name of Tupac's best-selling album, all eyes were on me, ready to throw blame my way for one of the biggest law enforcement controversies in decades. To the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, I was suddenly public enemy number 1. Additionally, I found myself in the crosshairs of rappers as well. I got the Rap Patrol on the Gat Patrol, Jay-Z rhymes on his hit, 99 Problems. My own people, though, truly left me out in the cold. The NYPD, my family for 2 decades of my life, which I departed as a detective with the highest rank of 1st grade, couldn't take the heat and left me out to dry. New York denied everything, McDonald says. It was like a game of whodunit. Indeed. NYPD brass basically denied my existence, implying I was a lone wolf, a renegade working solo, even though I had taken my orders directly from the top, Police Commissioners Howard Safir and Bernard Kerik. Under Safir, who served under Rudy Giuliani's mayoral administration between 1996 and 2000, I was instructed to create a squad devoted to hip-hop crime. However, it was Giuliani's last commish, Bernard Kerik, who pushed me to create the Binder, following the notorious 2001 shooting involving Lil' Kim outside the New York City hip-hop radio station Hot 97. Carrick would later become not just a best-selling author, but also the first major scandal of President George W. Bush's second term in office. Carrick's nomination for Director of Homeland Security ended in scandal involving allegations of mistresses and tax improprieties. Yet as the tough but innovative boss of the NYPD, any spike in hip-hop-related violence and the subsequent threat to the public seemed to personally galvanize him. Carrick didn't exactly run to my defense when the shit hit the fan, however. When the NYPD began receiving criticism in the press for their involvement in hip-hop surveillance, they made me the scapegoat. I was even called an Uncle Tom by my fellow African Americans, which hurt. To many in the media, the activist black community, and the hip-hop world, the existence of a law enforcement unit created strictly to keep tabs on hip-hop was evidence that young black men were being unfairly targeted. The actions of my hip-hop squad were compared to the FBI's COINTELPRO program, created in large part to destroy radical black activists during the civil rights era. Like everything in life, however, the truth is far more complicated. In fact, as the NYPD's hip-hop cop, I led a paradoxical existence. I was a po-po that loved hip-hop music, yet wasn't afraid to put the cuffs on the rapper if he was breaking the law. Because of the way I dressed and the color of my skin, many of my fellow officers mistook me for a perp. Later, they would suspect, because of my appearance and knowledge of the hip-hop industry, that I was too close to it, in too deep to be an objective upholder of the law. I often felt that it was my critics whose subjective cultural assumptions clouded their perspective. To the ACLU types on my case, I'm black, okay? I grew up in the same hoods like Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and Hollis, Queens as many of the most famous rappers. I'm more likely to be racially profiled myself than to engage in any racial profiling. No. As the hip-hop cop, I was always clear about what my job was: to go after criminals and to protect the public. That didn't mean persecuting rappers just because they tended to be young, black, rich, and angry, although during my experience with the Giuliani administration, it verged on that. That's when my disillusionment with the NYPD really began. Often, my job entailed protecting rappers themselves from the criminal element that attached itself to them like a barnacle. Sometimes my very presence at a concert or a club would prevent a crime from happening. I was able to stop a lot of hip-hop-related crimes from happening that the public never even heard about, ones that never made it to the papers. More often than not, I had to go to war against the cultural ignorance of my fellow officers, too many of whom assumed that all rappers were evil criminals, regardless of the fact. The NYPD often finds itself confused about how to deal with hip-hop crime. It's very interested in it, but doesn't know how to deal with it. Not every cop is knowledgeable of or cares about the codes of the street rappers adhere to. Still, if law enforcement wants to close cases, it needs to approach the hip-hop community with more sensitivity. Just as you wouldn't deal with a well-known mafia don like a common criminal, the same goes for crime involving high-profile hip-hop figures. It seems like common sense, but alas, the NYPD doesn't always share my views. For example, in 2001, Jay-Z was arrested outside the Midtown Manhattan nightclub Exit for illegal gun possession. Cops had allegedly found a loaded handgun on his bodyguard during a search of his vehicle. The weapon wasn't even in Jay-Z's personal possession. At the time, I begged the commanding officer to not make Jay do a perp walk past the rabid paparazzi lurking outside the precinct house. But it was no use. All perp walks are good for is humiliating suspects, and Jay-Z was no ordinary perp. Why would the cops treat him differently from, say, Liza Minnelli in the same situation? Humiliating Jay-Z served no purpose except to make him and other rappers cooperate even less with law enforcement than they already do. Ultimately, in fact, the charges against Jay-Z were dropped. Why should rappers help the police if cops are going to alienate them just to prove who's really boss? I couldn't blame the rappers' attitudes sometimes, because every day I saw what was causing them. Despite headlines portraying me and the NYPD as obsessive rap haters, I've always been passionate about hip-hop. That seems surprising coming from a cop, I know. And as a seasoned detective, I knew that someone had to try to build bridges between law enforcement and hip-hop, or the murders of Jam Master Jay, Tupac, Biggie, and others would never be solved. And as rappers became high-stakes, headline-grabbing prey for ambitious detectives and district attorneys, I had to protect myself from peers who were all too eager to knock me down and nab my spot. The war between law enforcement and hip-hop is an ongoing saga showing no sign of stopping. I myself got caught in that crossfire many times. Law enforcement and hip-hop have a lot in common. They're like two sides of the same coin, warring cousins inextricably linked to each other's destinies. Each eyes the other with suspicion through cracks in the fortress walls each has sequestered itself into. Both cultures are racked with corruption, driven by ambition, stunted by stubborn egos, closed to outsiders, and fiercely protective of their tribal codes. There's no way Popo and hip-hop could exist without each other, and yet there's no way they can seemingly get along. This would prove to be hip-hop crime's deadly catch-22. Indeed, by the time I formed the rap unit within the NYPD's intelligence arm, there was a dire need for a liaison between the hip-hop community and law enforcement. Hip-hop has had a volatile relationship with the police for too long, and as an African-American man who's seen it from both sides, I can understand why better than anyone. Young black males have long complained that police treat them like criminals even when they're not, and hip-hop's omnipresence on urban streets soured the bad relations even further. Many in law enforcement saw the flashy, brazen, blinged-out hip-hop lifestyle as a taunt, but it was rap's lawless braggadocio in its lyrics that soured relations between hip-hop and cops once and for all. The spark hit the gasoline back in '88, when the prototypical Los Angeles gangster rap group NWA, an acronym for Niggas with Attitude, released their scabrous protest album, F the Police. For NWA, whose members included future superstars Dr. Dre and Ice Cube, Fuck the Police was a throwing down of a gat-wielding gauntlet. When I'm finished, it's gonna be a bloodbath of cops dying in L.A., Ice Cube threatened on his verse. Law enforcement's response to F the Police was immediate. Cops started refusing to provide security at rap concerts, while rappers themselves complained about new, increased harassment. The FBI even threatened NWA's right to free speech by sending them a letter threatening to go after the group if it didn't curtail its lyrical provocations. The contentious battle didn't stop there, however. Archetypal gangster rapper Ice-T escalated the situation when he released the song Cop Killer in 1992 with his heavy metal group Body Count. "I'm about to kill me something. A pig stopped me for nothing," goes one typical verse. Texas police called for a boycott of the song, and cops nationwide took Cop Killer as a call to arms against rappers. The tension didn't end there. Snoop Dogg's early 90s breakthrough hit, Deep Cover, called for, quote, 187 on an undercover cop, end quote. 187 being police code for murder. Meanwhile, an ongoing slew of threatening cop killer rhymes keeps the hostile mistrust between police and rappers alive, like those on Philadelphia rapper Cassidy's 2005 street hit, I'm a Hustler. Quote, "Cops wait for a drought, then I make a flood, try to take my cake, you gonna take a slug." End quote. Between angry rappers and angry cops, I worked the middle chasm. During the last 4 years of my law enforcement career, I was responsible for creating and directing what alternately became known as the Hip Hop Task Force, Hip Hop Squad, or the Rap Intelligence Unit within the NYPD's Intelligence Division. It was never given an official name, as its function was intended to remain clandestine and mysterious, unknown to all but department insiders. As the hip-hop cop, I found no shortage of controversy. I had a front-row seat to watch over this potent cultural phenomenon, yet I was afraid I might see it die. It was the greatest job, but also ruthlessly challenging. I was proud that my hip-hop squad was placed in Intel, as it's the department's most elite division. Go any higher and you'd be in the FBI. In fact, in Intel, we often collaborated with the feds on big cases. The reason a hip-hop task force was created was because, in fact, it was urgently necessary. By the end of my tenure, hip-hop-related crime, in fact, had become an epidemic involving murder, robbery, extortion, money laundering, bribery, witness intimidation, and drug trafficking, most notably crack cocaine. The hip-hop industry had grown into one of the NYPD's main concerns, as evidenced by my placement in Intel. There, my hip-hop squad worked alongside the units devoted to organized crime, gangs, security for politicians and judges, and, of course, most importantly of all, security detail for Gracie Mansion, the stately historic home for New York mayors since 1942. Some NYPD guys know the mafia like the back of their hand. Others are forgery experts. Others do warrants. Me? I know hip-hop, homicide, and the music industry like George Steinbrenner knows the Yankees' batting lineup. Even before I was commissioned to start a rap intelligence unit, I was always known around the NYPD as the go-to guy and all-around expert in rap-related crime. The big bosses let it be known loud and clear throughout the force. If a crime occurred involving a rapper or someone in the hip-hop industry, Derrick Parker was to be notified pronto. It appeared I was preternaturally disposed to become the hip-hop cop. I've spent nearly all of my professional life working the streets of New York's hardest-knocked neighborhoods that, in retrospect, would be seen as the legendary spawning ground for rap music and culture. Brooklyn, Queens, the boogie-down Bronx. I'd grown up with rap as the soundtrack to my life and had always loved the music. And like many, I've been sucked in by the drama that follows it like a shadow. As a fan, and even sometimes performer, I had always kept my foot in the music industry, which inadvertently helped me in my law enforcement career. Starting in the early 80s, I'd immersed myself in the music world. I'd hit all the hot spots, attending legendary hip-hop clubs like the Latin Quarter to check out budding rappers like Heavy D and Big Daddy Kane before they became stars. I'd hang out in black music industry spots like Bentley's and Chaz and Wilson's, and at urban music conventions like Jack the Rapper, where I'd network with everyone from Russell Simmons and Puff Daddy to Suge Knight and Snoop Dogg. My law enforcement career coincided with two key developments: the rise of crack cocaine as urban America's deadliest plague, and the growth of hip-hop music out of a ghetto fad into a permanent part of the mainstream pop culture landscape. With my involvement in and passion for music, I had unwittingly created the ultimate deep cover. Even before I started a rap intelligence unit, I was a one-man mod squad. My clashing personas proved awkward sometimes. When I made the rap scene, people would always ask me, "Are you a promoter?" Often, I so blended into the hip-hop world that my fellow cops would be fooled. I had the same response for both camps. "Nah, I'm Popo." That wasn't always the answer either wanted to hear. As drug dealers started swarming around rappers at clubs and concerts in the birth of the crack era, I was always there, waiting in the wings. I was invisible, but I kept my eyes and ears wide open. My double life followed me everywhere. I started noticing heavyweight drug dealers and known felons attaching themselves to music celebrities, often the same criminals I was chasing for my day job. The coincidence haunted me. Before my eyes, my police work and music business interests starting to converge. As a result, in my decades spent working my way up through the NYPD's ranks, I've seen hip-hop grow from ghetto subculture to the most dominant pop cultural force operating today. Behind the lurid tabloid headlines and stereotypes, hip-hop has grown into possibly the second greatest African-American art form after jazz. I've put my life on the line for it many times, spending most of my career trying to protect its legacy. I've watched rap spawn superstars from Eminem and 50 Cent to Ice Cube and Wu-Tang Clan, with hip-hop becoming not just the most popular music genre worldwide, it's evolved into the lingua franca of the disenfranchised everywhere. Rap has moved from serving as the voice of urban America to dominating the heart and soul of people of all ages and races, from heartland American suburbs to Asia, Africa, Europe, and beyond.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?